Hey everyone, it's Erin with Hail Varsity. I'm joined by Brady, also of Hail Varsity. This is just the intro to these videos forever and ever more. But we are here at Memorial Stadium, again, inside partially because of the construction noise, but also because it's smoky outside. So for those of you either in Nebraska or you might be in Kansas, you are certainly experiencing this as well. It didn't stop Nebraska from practicing outside today, but yeah, it's a smoky day out there. Brady, we got to see some of practice. Like I said, Nebraska was practicing both inside and outside. We got to hear from both Matt Rhule, Garret McGuire, and then a couple of players. Let's just start with your biggest takeaways from the day.
Biggest takeaways is they kind of like, in general, how players came back from the Easter weekend. I mean, it's always kind of difficult when you give them a Saturday off or give them a longer time off, in the midst of spring camp to kind of see if they can come back with that retention. Overall, Rhule liked the retention. He kind of likes the direction of the team, even though it may not have been perfect and ideal how everything went in practice. He likes the retention and the effort that was shown today in practice. They're still doing the positional drill, still doing all that building and learning. Matt Rhule did say today that he hasn't settled on a format for the spring game. He wants it to be as close to an actual competitive game as possible, and that includes live quarterbacks because quarterbacks typically go live about every Thursday for at least to a certain extent. But he's going to wait and see what numbers are, basically how they are health-wise. Really nothing in indication in practice now that says that they're limited on numbers or anything, but there's still about 2 weeks between here and there. We'll see how everything goes. And then, Garrett McGuire getting to talk about his group, the guys that he's learning from. And he mentioned, he's been around coaching half of his life. And this is sure like his first big thing in college football. But even Matt Rhule said, my only real apprehension was I didn't know Garrett would leave the NFL. Because when you've got guys making millions of dollars, you think that they're difficult to coach, but Garrett wasn't afraid to get after him and coach him up a little bit. And I think players kind of responded to that, and players so far have responded to that. Even Erin Gilbert will come in, stop in his office, have some hot fries, and break down film, as Garrett said.
Which a lot of people, so earlier before spring ball started, we actually shared a clip from Garrett talking about how guys would come into his office to watch film, and he'd be like, what do you want? And like he had I think a few different snacks.
Yeah, he had honey buns and
honey
stuff like
buns
that.
and different things, and people kind of were kind of using that as a bit of an attack on his age, oh, he's just young. But for him, he's like, these are guys that are in my office at 8-9 p.m. at night, and they are working hard. They can kind of have a place. He's like, this isn't just my office, this is their office. This is not just so much for me, this is for them. And so for him, it's about building a space where one, they feel comfortable coming and hanging out. But he said it himself, he's having the time of his life. But when you watch him coaching, I really enjoy watching Garret McGuire coach because he is clearly having the time of his life, but he's also really balanced between being tough, being fair. He's just got this really good balance about how he approaches that group. And so, how that ends up working come the season is a totally different discussion. But at least right now in spring ball, he's he attracts a crowd. Whenever he is coaching, especially towards this one sideline, cameras just kind of immediately follow towards him because people are I want to watch him coach.
Yeah, and you see it, his interaction, the way that he gets involved with the players. You can see why players would tend to gravitate towards him, and that's just in the morning practices. There's a reason why they're in his room breaking down NFL film, 12 hours from now. There's a reason for that, and if they're doing that, at a very base level, they know where the players are. They're in here in the athletic offices. They can keep track of them easier if you want to look at it that way. And another way, these guys are studious. They want to be around the coaches. They enjoy this coaching staff, and most of them have just gotten to know them over the past couple of months. Garret McGuire was one of the late hires, so guys really only know him for 2.5, 3 months now, and they're willing to spend time out of their lives with him to study film with him. I think it says a lot, and Coach Rhule kind of mentioned as much today. And
speaking of one of the players in Garret McGuire's room is Isaiah Garcia Castaneda. Thank you. I was going to psych myself out. He has the E at the end, or not at the end, but in that part of the end. So I knew I was not going to just say it. I knew I was going to mess it up. But he had an opportunity to also speak today, and he's a really interesting situation because he had actually entered the transfer portal. He said, about mid-October, he was really unsure. He was really unsure of what was going to happen, and then he ultimately is still here. He made the decision to return. He's very grateful for it. He really enjoys. He talked a lot about how much he likes the staff. He likes Garret McGuire a lot. He really wanted to be here. That was really the big takeaway, is he wanted to be here. He was just really unsure. He was unsure of what was going to come for Nebraska. And so I think that may have led him into a situation of that uncertainty led him into a situation of kind of looking around, but then ultimately led him back to Nebraska. And he's really, it sounds like the relationship that is forming between him and not only his own position coach, but also with Matt Rhule, from his perspective, is good.
Yeah, and even Garrett and Matt both up at the podium today said he's just a tireless worker. He's a guy that's really detail-minded, fits in well with his coaching staff and what they like, and his parents are from West Texas. Garret McGuire was quick to point that out and said, so I know him, I know his family, I know where he comes from, I can relate to him. So and even Matt Rhule kind of mentioned when they talked about the spring portal opening. He's like, I haven't really thought about it. I really don't care. Ideally, I guess I'd wish it would be after spring ball so it wouldn't pressure players into thinking they'd have to move around or anything. So they understand the pressure that went into it. Obviously, Matt Rhule's talked about Isaiah's decision to return from the portal, that entering the portal had nothing to do with him, and they had a conversation. There's opportunity here, so they came back. So I think overall they see opportunity. Obviously, some players are going to see opportunity elsewhere if they think that there's too much of a line between themselves and the field and everything. But the coaching staff seems very upfront, honest with it, and they'll help them kind of proceed if that's their decision. And you kind of see it when the guys that they decide to come back or however they move, they help them out, and that's just kind of the way that they operate.
Yeah, Matt Rhule's been pretty clear through spring ball, but also even before when we got to know him, that he's really big on wanting to make sure he's doing what's right for these players, as much as maybe they want somebody to stay or whatever. That it's all about fit, and it's all about making sure that they're in the right place for them. And so I think you're seeing that in a lot of cases, where in Isaiah's case there's uncertainty, and so they let him figure out that uncertainty, but they're not holding it against him by any means. So that relationship, like I said, from his perspective, as he was talking about it sounds like he's very pleased with how things are going, and it seems like he likes his room, he likes his position coaches, so all good there. We also heard from, I didn't get to hear him, Fleeks was down on the end. I didn't get to hear him. I don't think you did either.
No, but Garret McGuire said Joshua Fleeks is a guy that, they've both been around. At one point, they were on the same roster together. Garrett was quarterback back at Baylor while Fleeks was a receiver there. So they have that familiar, and Garrett was like, we'll be studying film, and sometimes you show up on film and Josh is on the film that I'm showing him, which is kind of an odd thing to do. But they like the veteran too. Fleeks, Garcia Castaneda, even Marcus Washington, Billy Kemp. They like the veteran guys that are here. But he also kind of mentioned that they're going to need some of the young bodies and the young guns that they have bringing in, to bring them a glimpse, to bring them a spark somewhere here and there. So they coaches and it seems like players alike like the mix of veteran and young blood that they've got in the receiver room. So it's I think coaches like where they're at this spring with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting to watch. We are definitely in the final countdown heading into spring game. We are less than 2 weeks out. In fact, this was our last open practice availability before. We will not be able to see an open portion of practice again, because the next time we do, it's spring game week. So that's essentially the practice we get to see. We'll still get to hear from coaches and players leading up till then. So you'll have plenty more to come here at Hail Varsity. Make sure that you subscribe to this YouTube channel. Also go share our YouTube channel and everything else with your friends, your family. That would be super great. But you can also head to hailvarsity.com. We'll have practice. We already have practice observations. We'll have further recaps. All of the videos from everyone that we've talked about will be posted on YouTube. Like I've said before, Twitter, TikTok, Facebook, whatever your social platform of choice is, there will be updates there. So be sure to just go follow, subscribe, whatever that specific platform asks for.
Yeah, if you're stuck at the office, we got plenty of social media for you to avoid work. If you'd rather be outside and you're stuck inside, we got you. We got you. Although right now, if you are outside, it is you can't see from this window. The light is good, but you can definitely still see the haze out there. Yeah, so if you have allergies like me, it is not a fun time right now outside. Well, Brady, you gotta go get to work so that you have those things to distract yourselves from at work. We have to get to work so you can ignore your work. Yeah. We'll be back on Thursday with even more from, like I said, the coaches, more coaches, players. Matt Rhule will talk on Saturday, so that's your week's plan. Thank you, Brady. No problem. We'll talk to you later.